The House of Windsor just slammed the door shut on a chapter so scandal-ridden, so bloated with entitlement and disgrace, that it was starting to rot the palace from within. And at the center of that decay, none other than Prince Andrew, the Queen's once beloved spare, and Sarah Ferguson, the flame-haired Duchess-podcast-host-turned-socialite- both now officially booted from the Royal Lodge and stripped of the last remnants of royalty. Let's be clear, this isn't just a minor reshuffling of royal titles.
If you want more unfiltered royal truth, not the palace-approved version, hit like, subscribe and tell us in the comments, are Beatrice and Eugenie breaking the cycle or repeating history? Stay tuned. The tea only gets hotter.
This isn't a quiet family decision behind the walls of Buckingham Palace. No, this is a royal reckoning, a line drawn in the sand by King Charles himself. After years of dodging the fallout, brushing it under the velvet carpet, and hoping the media storm would just die down, the monarchy has finally taken its most decisive step yet. Prince Andrew is out. Finished. Done. No more HRH, no more security detail, no more taxpayer-funded estate in Windsor. As of now, he's not even a prince in public life. He's just Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And if that sounds like a dull, bureaucratic name for a man once second in line to the throne, that's the point. It's punishment by erasure. A public declaration that not even bloodlines can shield you from the fallout of your own disgrace. Remember, this is the man who stood accused credibly of sexual abuse, who claimed in a disastrous BBC interview that he couldn't possibly have been sweating during an alleged encounter because of a peculiar medical condition. A man who attended Jeffrey Epstein's parties and thought it was somehow excusable because, what? They were friends. He was too honorable to break it off. That interview alone didn't just torpedo his reputation, it burned it to the ground and left a smoking crater in its place. And still, for years afterward, he clung to that royal lodge like it was his God-given birthright, as if he could just ride it out behind the walls of a sprawling mansion. But now the drawbridge has been raised, and the gates slammed shut. King Charles, for all his careful diplomacy and resistance to drama, has finally picked up the royal axe, and Andrew was first on the chopping block. No more military titles. No more ceremonial roles. No more public support. The Royal Lodge, which Andrew stubbornly refused to leave for months, even as his public standing crumbled, is being emptied. Furniture packed. Security withdrawn. The curtains are closing on the most humiliating royal downfall in decades. And Sarah Ferguson. She's not far behind. Oh, Fergie. She always had a knack for surviving. The public scandals. The toe-sucking tabloid photos. The financial crises. The time she tried to sell access to Prince Andrew to undercover reporters. Somehow, she managed to cling to the edges of the royal fabric, never fully stitched in, but never quite banished either. In recent years, she tried a comeback tour of sorts: podcasting, children's books, vague media ventures. She even bought a £4 million Mayfair mansion, though no one was quite sure where the cash came from. Maybe Andrew. Maybe foreign investors. Maybe magic. But now, even Fergie seems to be sensing the collapse. She's sold off the mansion. Downsized. Recalibrated. Word is, she's eyeing the exit ramp. Maybe Switzerland. Maybe the Middle East. Anywhere but Britain, where her family name is now irrevocably stained. And she's reportedly cooking up media projects, documentaries, perhaps to tell her side of the story. It's a classic Fergie move. Pivot, rebrand, and try to turn scandal into content. But this time, it might be too little, too late. Because this isn't just a personal reckoning. It's a royal purge. King Charles is sending a message. This is a new era. The monarchy will no longer protect the disgraced. Not even if they're your own brother. Not even if they once held swords in royal ceremonies or stood on palace balconies in full regalia. The old model where scandals were buried, reputations sanitized, and the crown protected its own doesn't work anymore. Not in the age of 24-hour headlines. Not when survivors speak out. Not when the public is watching. Andrew's downfall is the monarchy's public penance. It's the price the institution is paying to prove it can evolve, to prove it's not stuck in the fog of tradition and denial. Charles knows that the legitimacy of the royal family now rests on accountability, a word that would have been laughable inside the palace walls a generation ago. But not now. Not in 2025. Not after everything. There was a time, believe it or not, when Andrew was one of the most popular royals. The dashing naval officer. The war hero. The Queen's favorite. And Fergie. She was the breath of fresh air. Fun, modern, relatable. But that time is long gone. What's left is a hollowed out legacy. A pair of aging aristocrats with no power, no prestige, and nowhere to go. Even their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, are in a precarious spot. Neither is a working royal. Both have tried to carve out private lives, careers, families, but always under the shadow of their father's scandal. And now that Andrew has been publicly disavowed, the question becomes, where do they fit? Are they part of the slimmed-down monarchy Charles envisions? Or are they now collateral damage in a cleanup operation? And let's not pretend this was just about moral clarity. This decision didn't come from the heavens. It came from pressure mounting, unrelenting public and political outrage. People demanded action. Media pounced. Polls showed trust in the monarchy declining, especially among younger generations. There was no future for an institution that kept someone like Andrew cloaked in status and privilege. This wasn't generosity. It was survival. By evicting Andrew from the royal lodge, Charles isn't just reclaiming a property. He's reclaiming the monarchy's moral high ground, or at least, trying to. Because when the royals act decisively against their own, it signals something bigger, that the days of royal impunity are ending. But don't expect Andrew to disappear quietly. There's always the risk of a comeback attempt, a rogue interview, a memoir, a documentary no one asked for. But even if he tries, the weight of his disgrace will follow him. He's no longer HRH, no longer protected, no longer insulated by tradition and lineage. He's just another man with a very public fall from grace and a very expensive legal bill. Fergie, meanwhile, might have one last play. She knows the game. She's media savvy. She knows how to talk to cameras, how to spin a narrative, how to lean into victimhood when it suits her. But it's hard to imagine the public embracing her now as anything more than a relic of a broken system. She might score an interview, a book deal, even a docuseries. But rehabilitation? That ship sailed a long time ago, right along with Andrew's reputation. This is the story of a royal family trying desperately to survive the world it now lives in. One where silence is complicity, where titles mean nothing without trust, where even the queen's son can be exiled. And if you're looking for symbolism, look no further than the empty royal lodge. For nearly 2 decades, Andrew treated it like his sanctuary, a place of privilege, protection, and permanence. Now it's just another royal building, waiting for its next occupant, someone deemed worthy. The monarchy is changing, slowly, painfully, but unmistakably. And this moment, this ruthless stripping of titles, honors, and homes is proof. Andrew and Fergie represent everything the modern royal family can no longer afford: scandal, excess, and entitlement without consequence. So here we are, one of the most dramatic chapters in recent royal history, playing out like a slow-motion collapse of a dynasty within a dynasty. Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, once royalty in every sense of the word, now exiled, erased, and effectively obsolete. The message from King Charles is loud and clear: no more cover-ups, no more exceptions, no more royal indulgence for those who disgrace the crown. Because if even a prince can fall this hard, then no one, absolutely no one, is untouchable. And yet, as the dust settles on the eviction of Prince Andrew and the slow-motion fade-out of Sarah Ferguson, there's a lingering question pulsing in the background like a ticking clock. What now? What happens when royalty becomes ordinary? When a man born into palaces and processions is suddenly just a civilian, stripped of his medals, removed from his estate, and renamed like a disgraced bureaucrat. Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The title alone lands with a dull thud. It's not just a demotion, it's a rebranding by humiliation. And it's deliberate. Because make no mistake, this isn't a soft transition. This is a purge. A ritualistic cleansing of a man whose name has become synonymous with shame. No more free housing, no more round-the-clock security, no more ceremonial appearances in full military garb while veterans look on in disbelief. The illusion is shattered. The mask is gone. And what's left? An aging, scandal-ridden man moving out of the only life he's ever known. The Royal Lodge wasn't just a house, it was a symbol. An enormous 30-room Windsor estate nestled within the crown's most protected land. And for 2 decades, Andrew clung to it like a man in denial, fending off pressure to leave even as public outrage grew. He reportedly dug in his heels, refused to budge, demanded time, even tried negotiating. But King Charles made his move. Enough was enough. The deadline was set. The writing was on the wall. Now, he's being relocated to a far smaller property, with reduced security and no public role. His days of strutting through royal grounds in horseback parades and military uniforms are gone. And you know what? About time. Because let's remember he was never held legally accountable in a courtroom, but he did settle out of court. That's not exoneration. That's not vindication. That's avoidance. And for too long, the palace let that be enough. Not anymore. King Charles is making an example of him, and rightly so. This monarchy is struggling for relevance in a modern world that is no longer amused by tiaras and tabloid drama. The people want consequences. They want transparency. They want to know that royal blood doesn't mean immunity from disgrace. And the palace, it's finally listening. But if Prince Andrew's fall has been spectacular, Fergie's descent is more of a slow glide downward, a controlled crash into uncertainty. Sarah Ferguson, ever the survivor, is attempting to land on her feet. She's sold the Mayfair property, which everyone assumed was part of some post-royal nesting plan. But the sale speaks volumes. The cash injection is telling. Is she trying to buffer herself for a life abroad? Or is this simply an escape plan because, let's face it, Britain's patience with the Yorks has worn paper thin. Fergie's charm has always been her ability to pivot, from royal bride to disgraced duchess to struggling single mom, to Oprah guest, to kids author, to wellness advocate, to podcast host. Reinvention is her sport, but this time, she's playing on a field scorched by scandal. And now, there's talk rumors swirling like royal gossip always does that she's preparing to speak. A documentary, a Netflix deal, a tell-all memoir with carefully chosen lighting and slow piano music in the background. Would it be a redemption arc? A justification? A plea for sympathy? Or would it be damage control masquerading as empowerment? She may paint herself as the misunderstood ex-duchess, trapped in the royal machinery, forced into silence, now finally reclaiming her voice. But the world's not easily swayed anymore. We've seen behind the curtain. We know the palace isn't just a fairy tale, it's a fortress. And when you're caught helping a man like Andrew dodge accountability, your pleas for sympathy ring hollow. And while Fergie toys with new projects and glossy narratives, Andrew's silence speaks volumes. There's no apology, no acceptance, no growth, just silence, as if the whole affair could still be willed away with enough discretion. But here's the brutal truth. No amount of silence, no number of Windsor walls, can erase the public record. People don't forget. And King Charles knows this better than anyone. The survival of the monarchy, his monarchy, depends on cutting off the rot. So he's done it. Surgically, brutally, publicly. This wasn't just about removing Andrew, it was about sending a signal. The old rules are gone. No more hiding disgrace in castles. No more shielding predators with protocol. No more treating royal status as a get-out-of-consequences-free card. This is a modern monarchy, or at least one trying to become one. And it's learning that survival depends on credibility, not pageantry. Of course, cynics will say Charles had no choice, that public pressure forced his hand, that the institution is reacting, not leading. And they wouldn't be wrong. But even a reactive monarchy is better than a complicit one. For years, the crown protected its own, hoping scandal fatigue would set in, that the public would move on. But the outrage never faded. It burned quietly. It simmered. And now it's erupting into real change. Still, the consequences go beyond Andrew and Fergie. Because this isn't just a story about two ex-royals. It's a reckoning for the entire House of York. Beatrice and Eugenie, once gently floating on the periphery of royal duties, now find themselves in an uneasy limbo. Their father is a public pariah. Their mother is a scandal magnet. And their family home has just been seized by the crown. Where does that leave them? They may want nothing to do with their father's controversies, but royal lineage doesn't come with opt-out buttons. The association is automatic. The reputational fallout, inevitable. And yet, despite the chaos, there's a strange, poetic justice in all this. Because for decades, the monarchy has danced on the edge of public tolerance, lavish spending, rigid hierarchy, a system built on the idea that some people are simply born better. That kind of myth only survives when the people playing royalty also play by the rules, when they act with dignity, when they earn the deference through service and example. Andrew obliterated that illusion, so his fall isn't just personal, it's symbolic. It tells us the monarchy knows it must evolve or die, that it can't ask for reverence and loyalty while protecting predators and freeloaders. There's something undeniably cinematic about it all. The prince who once flew helicopters in the Falklands, who dated supermodels, who stood next to his mother on the Buckingham Palace balcony, now reduced to a private citizen with no titles, no mansion, and no meaningful future within the firm. And Sarah Ferguson, once the vivacious duchess spinning around royal ballrooms in red satin, now sitting across from streaming executives trying to pitch her next act. Is it a tragedy? Perhaps. But it's also justice. A long overdue confrontation between privilege and responsibility. So here we are. A royal family fractured. A disgraced prince evicted. A duchess searching for a lifeline. And a king drawing a bold red line between past and future. This moment, this purge of the House of York isn't just about scandal. It's about evolution. About a monarchy finally realizing that its future can't be built on nostalgia and bloodlines alone. That it must show the public that it can change. That no one, no matter how blue their blood, is above reproach. And while Prince Andrew quietly packs his things and slips into civilian anonymity, the world watches the palace for its next move. Because if they can finally deal with Andrew, what or who comes next, stay tuned. The crown is no longer untouchable. And yet, even as Andrew disappears behind the heavy oak doors of irrelevance, and Fergie flirts with a spotlight that's more interrogative than flattering, the royal family isn't basking in triumph. This isn't a victory lap, it's a desperate maneuver. A house trying to extinguish a fire that's already singed the curtains, cracked the glass, and blackened the crown. Because when you exile a prince, you're not just shifting property deeds and changing letterheads. You're rewriting royal legacy. You're admitting loudly that the old ways failed. That privilege, unchecked, turns toxic. That silence, gilded though it may be, can be complicit. And that public forgiveness has limits, especially when accountability has been so long delayed. Charles knows the stakes. He's not just cleaning up his brother's mess, he's defending the entire institution. This monarchy has weathered wars, abdications, divorces, and tabloid storms. But the 21st century is different. The scrutiny is relentless. The forgiveness is conditional. The people are no longer content with fairy tales and parades. They want integrity. They want substance. And more than anything, they want to know that the rules apply to everyone, even those born with a crown above their cradle. So as Andrew is stripped bare of his titles, his honors, his ancestral home, what remains? A man who once thought the world owed him reverence, now forced to reckon with his own insignificance. A man whose only legacy may be the example he set of what happens when the monarchy finally decides that bloodlines aren't bulletproof. And Sarah, she's standing at a crossroads with a map written in headlines. Does she try to rebuild, to rebrand, to sell her story as redemption? Or does she disappear into the background, knowing that every comeback now comes with a reminder of the company she kept hidden? So let this be a warning. Let it echo through the marbled halls and across the lawns of every royal estate. The age of impunity is over. And for Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, the fairytale is finished. The crown has spoken. And this time, it didn't whisper, it roared.